According to 2020 AG statistics, 27% of the total credentialed ministers are women. And guess what? Our women are getting educated. But the question is, how long are you willing to go all in? Go ahead and share this podcast with your friends that need to hear this episode. Hey friends, welcome back to Learn Together. This is Saehee. I am super excited to learn with you in this ministry journey about how we can stay obedient for a long time in this ministry journey. It's not easy, but I would like to invite my co-host, Dr. Melissa Alfaro, to talk about this important topic about staying put for the long run. Now, Dr. Melissa Alfaro, congratulations. This last General Council, a couple months ago, you've been reelected for our Under 40 EP. So that is pretty exciting. New chapter. We're super excited. But maybe some people don't understand your ministry tenure. How long have you been in ministry, different pastoral ministry role, different context and shapes and forms?
Thank you, Saehee, first of all, for the opportunity to be here on this podcast with you, and also excited to continue to serve as Under 40 Executive Presbyter. I would say it began fresh out of when I graduated Southwestern Assemblies of God University. In fact, I remember that it was at graduation, there was something similar to credentialing days, and the North Texas district came in and they swooped us up and we signed up. And so it's been fresh out of college. So I want to say at least, I'm going to give my age away, but close to 20 years already.
We know you're under 40 for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, it's at least been between 20 years, around 20 years. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is incredible. And I'm sure you felt like quitting at times, but you did not. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for being being authentic and being honest in that. I think there's so much to talk about this topic. And so you brought some amazing guests and probably pretty well known in our tribe as well. So I'm super excited for our conversation. So who are our guests today?
Yes, well, I'm so excited about unpacking this topic, Saehee, because many times when we get together, we talk about church growth and leadership strategies or topics. However, I believe the strength of the ministries we lead rests on our capacity to endure spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and encounter those challenges that come with the growth and change. And that requires something that we're going to be talking about today that we like to call inner fortitude. Now, fortitude is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as courage in pain or adversity. And inner fortitude, I believe, not only keeps us planted in our present assignment, but it also builds longevity for our future calling. So here to help us unpack this topic, super thrilled about this. I've invited two ministry colleagues, friends, national leaders, as you said, and more importantly, two female ministers who have reflected inner fortitude in their own lives in how they serve God and steward their calling. So first of all, we want to welcome Pastor Donna Barrett. Many of you know her, Pastor Donna. She serves as our General Secretary of the Assemblies of God and has done so since 2018. She was the first female woman to serve on the executive leadership team. And prior to her present position, Pastor Donna was a church planner, serving as a founder and lead pastor of Rockside Church in Independence, Ohio. She also served as a paralegal, a youth pastor, an associate pastor, a general and executive presbyter for the Ohio Ministry Network. And as general secretary, for those of you that don't really know what she does, she stewards the credentialing process of ministers. She oversees the chartering of churches, the collection of official statistics, the Flower Pentecostal Heritage Center, and she's also a writer, the author of the book, Leveling the Praying Field. Phenomenal book, free promo right there. You got to get your hands on that. Help me welcome to this table. Help me welcome Pastor Donna Barrett.
Welcome.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Saehee. It's a joy to be with you today. Thanks for this opportunity.
Wow. I hope you get some sleep after all the long titles. That's very inspiring. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. So, what's something new in your life other than ministry so that we can kind of get to know you a little bit personally? What are some of the things that you enjoy doing in your downtime, if you have any?
Yeah, well, since moving to Springfield, Missouri, I took up playing pickleball. It's like ping pong on a tennis court, and it gives me a chance to get some exercise and meet some friends who are not a part of the Assemblies of God.
Oh, I love that. What is it called again?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Wow, that sounds pretty fascinating. So we have another conversational partner who's going to add to this and enrich our time together, Dr. Melissa Alfaro.
Yes, we also have Pastor Christina Vincent. She's one of our leaders who serves on the National Network of Women Ministers team. Christina is the Under 40 and Assemblies of God University's facilitator. She's ordained with the Assemblies of God. She obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Youth Ministry from Central Bible College. She served as a preteen youth pastor at Mesa First Assembly and as junior high youth pastor at Phoenix First Assembly. She has her Master of Divinity from the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary. She was recently elected to serve, catch this, as the Secretary Treasurer for a newly formed section in the Arizona Ministry Network. Big win for Network of Women Ministers. She enjoys working with the Network of Women Ministers team and continues to focus her energy and ministry endeavors on the next generation of leaders. But beyond all that, she's married and is the mother of a beautiful, I believe it's a 3-year-old, she can correct me if I'm wrong, a 3-year-old girl, and she believes in and models the concept of mommy and ministry with great excellence. So let's welcome Pastor Christina Vincent to the conversation.
Hello, Pastor
Hi.
Christina.
Hi, ladies.
You're not a stranger to the Network of Women Ministers, so
No.
super excited. Yeah.
Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. And so where are you tuning in from today?
Oh, the cameras
Right there.
are different. Phoenix.
Yeah.
I am in Phoenix, Arizona. So
Wow.
we recently relocated a year ago this month. I'm
Wow.
from Arizona. My husband is from Las Vegas. We met at AGTS in Springfield, Missouri at the Assemblies of God Seminary. And then after having our daughter, she's 2.5, she'll be 3 in February, decided to move back home to do ministry and be by family.
So ladies, it's not uncommon for us to hear conversations about burnout in ministry. We've all heard it before, maybe even chimed in on those conversations. And while sometimes that burnout can be caused by difficult circumstances around us, at other times, I wonder if it's not a result of our own habits as well. So Pastor Donna, we're going to start with you, but in your own experience and observation, what spiritual or leadership ministry habits or practices keep ministers from building emotional capacity or lead them into a state of burnout?
Oh, that's a great question, Melissa. I like to call it grit. I wrote an article recently in Called to Serve about developing and maintaining grit, but I like your description a little bit better about internal fortitude. I would say that maybe three habits that cause us to move toward burnout is allowing too much space to develop, first of all, between your call and your present pursuit. When you are pursuing what God has called you to do, and you don't allow any space to develop between your call and your pursuit, that helps you stay focused. Secondly, sometimes we allow too much space to develop between our expectations and our reality. And that's where depression can live, and that's where burnout can develop. So if we can bring our expectations and our reality to where there's no space between them, that can help. Now, how do we do that? Well, Dr. Richard Dobbins, in a session on how to handle criticism, told us as ministers decades ago, expect at least 20% of your people to be unhappy with you all the time. Now, that might sound like, wow, really? But if we have this expectation that everyone's going to love us all the time, that's not our reality. Space will develop and we'll become burned out. So learn how to handle criticism. Jesus didn't use any of his energy defending himself because he knew who he was. He knew what he was called to accomplish, and he pursued that. Social media can mess with our expectations. We look and see what other people have posted and we think, oh, I should be doing that. It can also mess with our perception of reality. We can look at social media and think, well, that's not my husband, or that's not my church, that's not my reality, and space develops between expectations and reality. burnout can start to live there. And then thirdly, don't allow too much space to develop since the last time you had one-on-one time with Jesus. That should happen every 23 hours. Process your pain in his presence. Emote before the Lord using some of the words that the psalmist gave to us. Lament your grief of disappointments and celebrate the wins that God says this is a win. And don't allow too much space to develop between the last time you spent time with the Lord and your present day. If you can bring in that space on those three areas, between your call and your pursuit, between expectations and reality, between the last time you had time alone with the Lord, bring that into alignment, that will keep you from developing burnout.
That's good.
That is so good. So good. Christina?
Thinking through that question, I think for me, I learned along the way, it's very holistic. It really, some of the points that Pastor Donna made, and one of those things is really learning yourself, because I needed to understand who I am and how I operate internally in order to set myself up for success for the long haul, understanding my weaknesses. There's so many resources at this point in ministry that we can use, whether that's the Enneagram test or Strength Finders or DISC. There's so many things that help us understand ourselves, not only as a leader, but as a person, and then be able to facilitate what we see as weak points that can really lead to burnout. Understanding, for instance, I'm an extrovert, my husband is an introvert. For me to refresh, I've got to be around my friends and having fun. For my husband, he needs some away time. He needs some alone time, just quiet. And so those differences, either if we don't have one or the other that we need, it can quickly lead to burnout. And the other thing is, and Pastor Donna mentioned this, but relationships, they're vital. They're vital to walking with us and keeping us emotionally grounded for those moments when we are maybe struggling to learn, okay, now is time to call on some of those people, and not allowing distance to be a reason that we say, well, I don't have that in my life, but really pursuing it. Some of my closest relationships, I don't live in the same city or state of any one of you. And I text with some of you. Some of my closest relationships that I go to and say, hey, today I need someone to walk with me, to pray with me, and even encourage that inner fortitude in me and draw it out of me, are people that are on the other side of the country. So using platforms like this and social media that, not social media necessarily, but FaceTime and texting and Marco Polo, all of those things that help us build relationship for people to speak into our life.
That's good. This importance of friendship and the relationship has actually occurred in almost in every episode that we've been doing this. And I think it's because it's such an important aspect of ministry journey, both for men and women, and at all seasons of ministry journey, from the beginning, middle, and all toward the end. We just need each other, and that's so important. I want to ask you the follow-up question, and I will just start with Christina. So what cultural and generational or systemic changes can be made to help develop inner fortitude in our female ministers? What are some of the things that we need to be intentional about it?
Sure. That generational, systematic, cultural is so broad. I think that we have to recognize what is going on, what issues are at hand in our context, and investing our time and energy into what are things that need to be addressed in my context, putting your energy there. And also understanding, I think it's important to recognize that when we're addressing things that need to have change, if you say systemic, that's more work. We're talking about systems, we're talking about changing flow of things. But when you talk about cultural and generational, we're talking about relationship. And I think that it's important that we may see changes that need to happen But we do that with honor. We do that with respect. We understand that there are those who came before us, and we stand on their shoulders. We may need to forge a new path or continue the path, but doing that intentionally, but with honor and respect. So I really think it comes down to what is in front of you that needs to change.
That's good. We're just being mindful of the context. That's great. Pastor Donna.
Well, I think in some ways we've never been, as a culture or as a generation, more affluent, more comfortable, more tempted to be self-focused than any other culture, any other generation. And it slips into the church as well. And it can keep us from developing that inner fortitude. And so I would drive us back to the Bible. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, right in the beginning of that passage, it talks about, with the same comfort we've received from the Lord, we turn and comfort other people. And a friend of mine said, when she looked at that word comfort, she thought that would be like a fuzzy blanket coming to make her comfortable. But really what God provided was an iron rod in her back to push her forward. That was the comfort the Holy Spirit wanted to bring to her. And the goal isn't to get us into our comfort zone and make all the problems go away, but rather to develop grit that's caused by discomfort. And so if we run to the discomfort thinking, how can I learn from this and grow stronger, instead of how can I get out of this pain and be more comfortable, I think those are cultural and generational things that we look at to say, I need to be aware of the present situation and how this can grow me to a place of greater internal fortitude.
That's great, Pastor Donna. Wow, we need that grit. I know from my own experience, sometimes we let those personal and even systematic barriers keep us from stepping into higher levels of leadership, even when given the opportunity. When other leaders around us see it, they're opening the door, they're inviting us to the table, but something in us, whether it's our own self, an insecurity, fear, or just a systematic cultural generational barrier that we feel, I don't know if I'm ready to deal with this or get in the messiness of this to make it work. So how do we intentionally, and I'll start with you, Pastor Donna, how do we intentionally train our female ministers for the long haul to rise up to those different levels of leadership?
Encourage them that they don't have to understand the job and feel successful at it before they say yes to it. I remember when I got elected as a general presbyter in Ohio, I had to go to the bylaws and look up what in the world is a general presbyter and what do they do. And the first time I stepped into that GP room, I knew about 5% of what was going on, and the rest of it was learning on the fly, on the job. And that's okay. Many times we don't want to say yes to something until we think, I'm 100% sure I could succeed at that. So just realizing the messiness of it and coaching one another forward in that, pointing back to the call. If you can do anything else, do it. If you're called of God, you can't do anything else. And if God opens up a door and he's calling you through it, you have two choices: disobey the Lord or walk through that door and respond to the call. Secondly, look at models. Dr. Melissa, you're a great example of somebody who has stepped into new places in the middle of not needing one more thing to do in your life, but wanting to say yes to God. So look at models of people who have gone before you. And then maybe a third point is to network together so that we're pulling one another forward. When you're tempted to quit or you're invited to do something that you think, I'm not sure if this is for me or not, if you have some colleagues, men and women, who are in your corner cheering you on, that will help you go forward. When we think about training, I don't know if this grit is something we can learn in the classroom with a textbook as much as it's something that we learn on the job, in relationships, doing life together.
That's so good. So good. And I especially like that you said you don't learn in a classroom. This is something you've got to be in a relationship with people. Christina, what would you add to that?
My current life, what I'm walking into, what I'm experiencing is a result of these conversations. So I think just talking about it and getting the word out there, letting women begin to think about it before those doors are open are critical. And just literally example from my own life. So one of our first professional development nights with the network of women ministers that we host online, Pastor Donna spoke about building your resume in what do you say yes to and how do you broaden your experience. And at that, Pastor Donna, you said, just say yes. When the opportunity comes, if you don't have a check in your spirit and the Lord is saying no, say yes. And even like you just said, even if you don't know what the full job description is or what it's going to look like, say yes. I already had that in the back of my mind, that teaching. So currently, I am a minister. I work with a network of women ministers. I'm a wife and a mom of a toddler, which is enough in itself. But the Lord in this season is opening doors that I did not expect. So a few months ago, I came to a crossroad where I was just feeling like I want to step back. I don't want to take on more, even though these doors in our movement are beginning to open to invest in our movement, which I really believe in. And the Lord really spoke clearly to me and said, you can step back, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to expand and to trust me. And so I just began saying yes. And I'm really grateful for that. It's a learning. It is a learning on the go from literally, I also did take out a description after I said yes, a job description. I was like, what am I doing? What did I just say yes to? And then figuring out rhythm, for instance, today I have the day away in office. I have meetings and our podcast, and my husband is working from home with our daughter. And so, having those conversations and those thought processes before the opportunity comes not only allows me to think through that process and decide that I'm going to say yes ahead of time, but also to have that conversation with, if you are married and you have a spouse and you have someone that you're partnered with and running alongside, you can have those conversations with them ahead of time as well, because my yes also has to be my husband's yes in this season for us. And so he is 100% on board and championing me. And so for me, it's been that we've had these conversations and thought processes ahead of time.
That's so good. The more I'm in ministry, the more often I hear this phrase, we're going to build a plane as we fly. And I've heard that several times just in recent days too, in different set of meetings with ministers. And this is not to say we're unequipped people. What we're saying, we're pioneering something new. So we're just going to have to try something and stay all in, no matter the barriers or challenges. And I love that how we talked about training in the context of relationship. And that goes to our male ministers out there who actually take up the majority of our top tier leadership, that we need you to take on women ministers that are called to leadership, to build that and foster their relational training so that we can learn, not just in classroom, because a lot of things that we do are really practical. Just take on a few of the mentees that are both men and women, teach them as you walk, as you eat, as you minister. Allow women and men to shadow you and learn from you. I think that's a great opportunity. This is also great that we are authentic and vulnerable, talking about, hey, when we say yes to it, we didn't know what we're saying yes to. And I've been in that position. I'm pretty sure Melissa had been in that position too. But that's how we rise up. That's how we begin to break the barriers and just strengthen that inner fortitude. So great conversation. Here's my final question to both of you. Just final thoughts as you're concluding this conversation about longevity or burnout to prevent against it. What are some of the just practical wisdom you would like to give to our ministers, both men and women? Pastor Donna.
Well, if someone's experiencing burnout right now, I would have to ask them how many appointments with your counselor is already on the schedule, because you need to be counseling. I'm of the opinion that every minister needs a counselor and a coach on speed dial, someone you're in relationship with that you can check in with periodically, that knows you, that you have a trust for, so that you are able to step in and get the help you need all the time. We can only give to other people what we've received ourselves. So see a counselor. Secondly, I would say honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. The design of working 6 days and resting one is a beautiful gift that God has given us in his word that we need to be following. And sometimes in the ministry, we can get to the opinion in our mind that we don't work for God, we are God. And we're not God to anyone. We work for God. We point people to God. And we would never say that, But sometimes we function like we think we've got to fix everyone's problems. We have to be available to every call that comes in, that we are somehow deity, and we just work for God. We are not God. So if we can work 6 and rest 1, knowing that God will help us accomplish more in 6 days when we've honored the Sabbath, then we can accomplish in that 7th day of continuing to press in and work harder. Those things help us keep from becoming burned out, that we have a realistic expectation of who we are, what we can accomplish, that we're not going to keep everyone happy. Someone's going to be disappointed they didn't get an appointment with you this week, but that's going to be okay. It needs to be okay. And that keeps us from getting burned out. And then having a counselor and a coach on speed dial, those are things that keep us going.
That's good. That's good. Christina.
I affirm all of that. I think stay faithful. You know, if you want to set up yourself to not get to burnout, how do you do that? Be faithful in all things, and not just the work, but like Pastor Donna said, the rest. Be faithful in rest. Be faithful to your time with Jesus. If Jesus isn't center focus, if he doesn't come first, then we really are just doing our own work and out of our own strength, which always leads to burnout, essentially. And really knowing your limits. Like I mentioned earlier about being holistic and understanding who you are, but making sure that you understand your own rhythms, because your rhythms are not someone else's. And oftentimes it's easy to compare. When I was young in ministry, you know, someone that I worked alongside, highly successful leader, and I saw how they operated, and I tried to fit that mold. And getting up at 4 a.m. was not ideal for me in that season. And that things are seasonal, and that's okay. So understand that you have rhythms, and you have rhythms in seasons. And it's okay for those to change. If you're in a rhythm that you are up at 4 a.m. every day, and that's how you start your day, and there's a grace on that, embrace it. But if you're in a season that doesn't allow for that, and even if God is shifting it, it can almost feel like you're failing, but you're not. It's okay to shift. It's okay to change. It's okay to find what is healthy for you in the season that you're in.
Such wisdom. I love it. From our conversation, I'm really learning that know our place. If you want to build the inner fortitude, know that we're a mere human being worshiping God. He's a divine big God. As he leads, just follow his lead, then we'll be fine. Thank you so much for that great reminder through your stories and expertise. Dr. Melissa, thank you for bringing this top tier leaders. What a privilege and honor to have this conversation, right?
Yes, thank you, Pastor Donna. Thank you, Christina, so much for just coming alongside us today in conversation and intersecting your ministry journey with ours and encouraging us in that moment. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. My friends at NWM, thank you for joining our conversation. As always, stay connected through our social media at AG Women Ministers. And we are only emails away. So if any of us can be a help and resource to you, we are all in this and supporting your call, because you are important to us and to the kingdom of God. We love you. We're all doing this together. Stay put, and follow us. And we love you guys. Until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye.